Peace and light, family. I hope that you are well. So today I am rocking my Hillman College, I hope you can see it, my Hillman College alumni sweatshirt. For those of you who don't know, Hillman College is the college that the kids went to on the show A Different World back in the day. Shout out to everybody from A Different World and all my A Different World watchers. I love that show, and that show single-handedly made me want to attend an HBCU. For those of you who don't know, an HBCU is a historically black college or university. They are colleges and universities that were founded so that black people can be able to earn in higher education, right? So the beauty about going to a HBCU is infinite. This particular video, I want to discuss some pros and cons of attending an HBCU. Yes, I myself went to, not a Hillman College, because Hillman College is definitely a fictional school. However, I did go to Savannah State University, the illustrious school. Ooh, is it school? Ooh. The illustrious University by the Sea. Okay, I know my HBCU. The illustrious University by the Sea, which is Savannah State University in Savannah, Georgia. Now, the beauty of attending my HBCU is that I still go back to this day. Savannah has hands down become my second home because I grew so much in that time that I went to Savannah State. Now, was my journey there perfect? Absolutely not. My heat just came on, so sorry if that's a little loud. I'll try to speak a little louder, but I gotta have the heat. Okay, it's wintertime in New York City, baby. So anyway, I went to my HBCU and I grew so much as a person while going there. When I first started, of course, I was 18 years old, and when I left, I was 23. Yes, I spent 5 years at my university, and it was a beautiful experience. So I want to talk about some pros and cons of attending an HBCU because it ain't always perfect. Let me just say that. Okay, but my first pro is, of course, obviously the sense of community that you have when you attend the HBCU. Thankfully, most HBCUs are still majority black. Some examples of HBCUs, for those who don't know, are like you have your popular ones, which is like Spelman and Clark Atlanta, Morehouse, Howard University. Those, I think those are like, would be like top 5 HBCUs. And then you have smaller HBCUs like the one I went to, which is Savannah State. You have Norfolk State in Virginia. You have Virginia State University in Virginia. So you have like smaller HBCUs as well. Now, going to a HBCU, because it is a majority black, you just naturally feel a sense of comfort and community, especially if you had a super black childhood. Like, I grew up very black. I grew up in a black community. I grew up going to a school with majority black kids. Every school I went to was majority black. So I just naturally felt comfortable at my HBCU. It was something that was very familiar to me, something that I was used to. Like going, like sitting in the classroom and looking to my left and to my right, and there are people in there who look like me, was beautiful. You know, it was a great feeling. It just made me feel more so like I could just naturally be myself. I didn't feel the need to code switch. I know oftentimes when I talk to my friends at PWIs, they had to experience code switching much more often than I ever did, which is a good and a bad thing, and I'll get into that later on. But for those of you who don't know, code switching is something that black people and a lot of people of color, of different ethnicities, they have to do. And the act of code switching is basically, I don't know like the proper definition, but essentially it's when you gotta switch up to assimilate more into what is considered like proper culture. For example, an example of code switching, something that we all experienced growing up, is when that professional phone call come in, when your mama gotta handle some business on the phone and she puts on her voice. Hi, how are you? Hi, great talking to you. Yes, this is she. Okay, you know, when we go up that one octave and we start to use all of our proper language and we don't be chilling like we be chilling, you know what I'm saying? That's code switching. When you put on your bill collector voice, okay, you know, that's code switching. So being in a classroom, because I was in such like a familiar community, I naturally just felt comfortable. I felt relaxed. I felt cool. I felt like I could just be myself any space that I went into, whether that was the classroom or I was in the cafeteria or I was at like a panel discussion. I felt like I could just be real and be me, and I didn't have to code switch in order to like, oh, I'm going in class, let me straighten up and act right. And not saying that the way we act is wrong, but you know what I'm saying. You just feel more comfortable in that community. Also, like when I lived on campus, so I lived in a dorm, and it was just, I felt like I was living with some sisters. You know what I'm saying? Like all the things that we went through in our dorm, we just had like a lot of stuff in common, just naturally, because we black girls. So you living in a dorm with a bunch of black girls, you don't have to explain why it's weave, or you don't, or on the floor, you don't have to explain why you need to do certain things that we gotta do as black women, like do our hair, and why we gotta do our hair a certain way, or why we got all these oils and products. You know what I'm saying? From one of my friends went to a PWI, and she said that her white roommate asked her why she had so many products, hair products in the bathroom. Ain't no sister about to ask you that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, we know. We got this. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have to explain the way we move or why we do certain things and why we live the way we live, because you living with another sister or another brother, so they understand what's up. You know what I'm saying? So that was great. Just like that sense of community and that sense of connection. Another pro about going to a HBCU, and it kind of like built on that sense of community, is that in the classroom, we mostly had black professors. We did still have a couple white professors, but most of my professors in my classrooms were black people. My main mentor, Dr. Dorothy Gardner, shout out to her, a beautiful, amazing, strong black woman, taught me so much. And having a community of professors who look like you is not only naturally inspiring, it not only naturally just makes you know that being an educated black man, black woman is successful is possible, but it also just reminds you of the value of when you do get this degree, when you do make it to that next level, you come back and you teach people who are just how you once were. You know what I'm saying? When I went into my classrooms and I saw my black professors, I saw right then and there the value of giving back. So it was just inspiring. And then also, my black professors knew how to connect with me. The pro that I will really, really point out in this moment is the classroom is naturally, culturally, responsively taught. For those of you who don't know about culturally responsive teaching, it's when the education and the way that the information is taught is responsive to the culture of the students that are in that classroom. Now, culturally responsive teaching is mostly a term that is associated with teachers teaching in black classrooms or majority black communities. However, culturally responsive teaching occurs no matter where you are. If you have a school in the Asian community, you have to teach in a way that is responsive to their particular sector of Asian culture, right? Whether if it's Korean culture, Chinese culture, whatever, you got to be culturally responsive to them. When I was in South Africa, there were certain things that went on in the classroom, or certain things you had to understand about the Zulu culture or the Sotho culture when you taught in the classroom, so that you can make sure that you are building a connection between the education and the people that you are trying to teach, right? But when you go to a HBCU and you have black professors, 9.99999 times out of 10, that classroom is naturally culturally responsibly taught without even trying hard, because the professor is just like us. So they know certain gaps in understanding that we may have when learning a certain math equation, or a certain moment in history. We may need a cultural connection. They may be trying to teach us something about history, and in our mind we wondering, well, what was going on with the black folks at this time? We don't, in a regular classroom you would have to ask that, well, excuse me, what about the black people during this time? What was happening with them? When you go into a HBCU, they're automatically going to teach you that. You know what I'm saying? And that's the beauty about having black professors in the classroom, because they know how they need to move and shake and bake this information in order for it to connect with us. So I appreciated that. So far, the sense of community, the culturally responsive teaching, and the next pro that I'll go ahead and just dig into Okay, and when I say dig into, I'm really gonna dig into this one. It's gonna be quick, but I'm digging. The next pro is, I absolutely could not have been more grateful for the way my HBCU enhanced me as a person. I learned so much about my culture going to a HBCU. For those of you who don't know, when you attend a HBCU, you cannot graduate unless you have taken African American history or some type of Africana studies class or something. That is a requirement for you to graduate from most HBCUs. You have to learn about Black culture. And if you have a bomb professor who really takes that class serious, when you take that class your freshman or sophomore year, it is no way that you will leave out of that class the same person that you were when you went in. You are required to learn about your Black history, your Black culture before slavery. Learn about us when we was kings and queens, which we still are, but when we were held to that esteem. You know what I'm saying? Learn the fact that when they brought African people over here, they didn't bring slaves to America. They brought doctors, lawyers, astronauts, scientists, computer engineers. They brought greatness and they made them slaves. They turned them into slaves. They enslaved these educated, successful African people who are our ancestors. So when you go to a HBCU and you learn this information, you have no choice but to leave with a sense of pride that you may not necessarily have had when you walked into it. You know what I'm saying? And that sense of pride definitely changed me as a person. It changed how I looked at myself as a Black woman, as a Black person in this society, right? So going to a HBCU, you will absolutely connect more to your roots, and connecting to your roots naturally just enhances your being, your perspective of yourself, your perspective and your perception of your community. You know what I'm saying? Like that really, that is like the most beautiful and valuable thing that happened to me when I went to my HBCU. And yes, does college grow everyone? Absolutely. But does it grow you in this way? You know, I left here. I was already like here, but I left here. You know what I'm saying? Like I left with whatever. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that my college, my HBCU, once again, Savannah State University, was so involved and so active in the community. Everywhere from politics to community-based outreach and helping to working with at-risk youth. We definitely went above and beyond to make sure that we were building the Black community, right? So that connection was beautiful. And we got to know our community in a way that I don't think I would have gotten to know my community previously if I didn't attend the HBCU. So real quick, I'm just going to move into the cons. There's no way to really transition into this. I'll just say anyone who's watching this video that attended an HBCU or is attending an HBCU, if you disagree with anything I'm saying in this video, please leave it in the comments. You know what I'm saying? And especially this first con that I'm going to touch on. If you have had a different experience, holla at a sister and let her know so that I can pass the information forward, because I have a niece who's actually attending an HBCU fall 2020, and as much help as she can get would be great. But a con for me of attending my HBCU, and I hear a lot of people who attended HBCU say this, a huge con is financial aid. Financial aid offices at an HBCU, baby. They be trying. They try us. They try us to no end, and that's sad to say. It's sad to admit. It hurts me to have to even speak this aloud. Financial aid offices at a lot of HBCUs, I'm not going to say all. So before y'all start being like, well, I went to that, and my financial aid was great. Listen, and talk to other people who go to other HBCUs. Most people who go to HBCUs have had to cuss out financial aid, okay? I don't know why they be playing with our money like that, but everything from getting our refund checks late, oh, we didn't process this in time, whatever, the line being super out the door and crazy in the beginning of the semester because so many people financial aid is messed up and we all lined up at the office trying to get our stuff straight. It's a problem. And I'll admit, I personally did not have many issues with financial aid. I was very much blessed to where, like, honestly, when it came to handling my financial aid, I just was on it super early. Once spring started, I was already handling my financial aid for the following semester. Okay, at the start of my semester, I was already handling my financial aid business for that next semester. Just because I knew that it could take up to a full semester to make sure that your money's straight and it's taken care of and it's already there. So that way, fall, I could start my classes. You know what I'm saying? But the financial aid office and a lot of HBCUs, they be nasty. They don't be really wanting to try to give you money like that. You know, I don't know what it is, but about the requirements, what the requirements is to work at that front desk of financial aid. I don't know what you got to put on your application, but I feel like you got to put in the notes, I'm a professional curse a nigga outer. Okay, because the people who work that front desk of most financial aids, they attitude, bruh. Okay, you really be having a like, let me tell you something. Bring that tone down when you speak to me, because it's my money. I can't tell y'all how many times I had to give a reminder of, we talking about my money. You mad about my money. You know what I'm saying? So financial aid officers at HBCUs, I beg of you, if you work in one, please do a huddle tomorrow morning and say, y'all, we're gonna be good to folks today. Do a huddle in the morning and say, y'all, we're gonna try to make sure we can bless as many people as we can with as many resources as we can for where they could get some money and pull some money from. Because everybody know, a lot of people in the Black community, unfortunately, we don't have the finances like that just to come out our pocket and say, boom, here's the money. So when we come to financial aid, we're hoping that there are a plethora of resources of where we can apply for scholarships and grants and stuff like that. A lot of us don't know how to do that, and a lot of people like myself are first generation college students. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I didn't know a lot. I didn't even know what FAFSA was before I went to school. I didn't know how none of that worked because I was the first one. So I would hope that if you work in financial aid, you could put on your thinking cap and realize, yes, I threw it all the way back to elementary with the thinking cap. Put your thinking caps on. I remember your teacher used to say, tie it. You know, put your thinking caps on and realize that a lot of us do not know. So it may seem like common sense to you, may not be common sense to somebody else. Just be courteous and be kind, and maybe have like a little sheet of resources where you could a list of websites where people could apply for grants and scholarships, because trust me, they may not know. And for all of my people who are attending HBCUs, my biggest advice, like I said in the very beginning, just make sure that you already go with your financial aid stuff in order and prepared and ready. You know what I'm saying? My next con, moving on from financial aid, okay, because it's real. My next con is going to a HBCU. Yes, there was a huge sense of community. Yes, I experienced a lot of culturally responsive teaching. Yes, I did learn a lot about myself and my culture. However, because I was so submerged in Black culture, because I was so submerged in the Black experience for 5 years straight, I felt very unprepared for the white world. Simply put, I do not feel like I was prepared for the white world. When I left my HBCU, I started Teach for America, which, for those of you who don't know, Teach for America is a fellowship program. The numbers for Teach for America, they usually normally hire about 70% white people. And it basically, it ain't that many of us. Okay, it's only about 18 to 21 1% of black people who are hired for Teach for America. So it's not that many of us. And when I walked into a room, my first day of Institute, which is the training program, when I walked into my room, I walked into the classroom the first day of Institute, it was 78 people in there. 73 of them were white. Myself and only one other person was black. So 2 black people in the room. The other people were Asian, right? Now, that's interesting. Think about that. Think about that. Think about that now. Like, that experience was shocking for me, and for the other person who me and him are friends to this day. Shout out to Twan. Me and him are friends to this day. Me and the other black person in the room, we immediately looked at each other. We here and we connected, you know, brother, I got you, you got me. And we connected. He went to a PWI. He had to put me onto a lot of stuff that I didn't know. We had a lot of discussions. They call them like DEI sessions, or basically like something like diversity inclusion sessions or whatever. But these are sessions where we would have open discussions about like diversity, the black experience, at-risk youth, and a term was thrown out one day called white guilt. And at my HBCU, we didn't really talk about like white people like that in that way. We never talked about white guilt. We never spoke about that. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of was just like a subtle understanding of, we know what it is out here in these streets, and this is, we talking about how we maneuver and still keep us in our consciousness. You know what I'm saying? But we didn't talk about things like white guilt and stuff like that. So my friend who went to the PWI, it was a lot of stuff he had to put me on to, like, girl, they talking about da-da-da-da. Okay, girl, this is what she talking about is yada yada yada. When it came to like terms and references that the white people was throwing out, you know, and just also like the little white jokes and stuff. They would make little jokes and comments and stuff about like the office, to show the office. They would make like little references and stuff, and I was like, what? You know, I make a Martin reference. Of course, they didn't know what that was. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of them, some of them didn't even know who Martin was. Do y'all know that a lot of white people do not know who Martin Lawrence is? Is that not crazy? It was a white guy who was a comedian. He didn't know Martin Lawrence, bruh. I was like, oh, y'all really different. Like, but anyway, my HBCU, I don't feel like it prepared me to survive in a white world necessarily. And when I say survive, I mean to be able to move strategically, but while still remaining as black as I am. And when I say black as I am, I mean consciously, unapologetically black, and showing up and being my damn self no matter where I went. Because I spent so many years not code switching and just being who I am, to the point that my code switching skills weren't where they needed to be. So that'll be a con. I will say I was kind of shell shocked when I started working in a workforce that was majority white. I also had to really learn a lot of like white tactics and the way that prejudiced white people move. Not saying all white people, but prejudiced white people, who, and those who know it and don't know it, because there are people who are prejudiced and don't know that they're prejudiced, or racist and don't realize they're racist. I had to really like pay attention and learn how they move, and learn about covert versus overt racism, covert versus overt prejudice, you know, and those are things that I learned after my HBCU. Now, what my HBCU did prepare me for when it came to being in the white world is, once again, how to remain unapologetically black, because I ain't know no other way. I didn't know no other way to be. Like I said, I grew up super black. I grew up in black communities. I grew up going to majority black schools. Then I spent the foundation of my adulthood in a black community at HBCU. So I just didn't know no other way to be but like this, you know. And I appreciate that, and I'm happy about that, and I'm thankful for that. So yeah, those are my two main cons, I would say, going to HBCU. Feeling unprepared for the white world, and then that financial aid foolishness. You know what I'm saying? So those really the only cons. But other than that, the pros definitely outweigh all the cons. That sense of community, the culturally responsive teaching, having a more enhanced view and more enhanced knowledge of my culture and our history as black people, our our history of our community, our history of our blackness, and leaving super unapologetically black. And I keep using that term because that's really just what it is, and that's what's real. And then overall, I'll really end with this last pro. Speaking of Hillman College in a different world, my college life was truly just like a different world. If you have not seen that show, I think you can find some clips and stuff on YouTube. I think they have like little excerpts and stuff of the show, little clips of the show. Please watch it. Please show your teenagers if your teenagers is on the way to college, because we definitely got to keep the message of that show alive. Aside from Bill Cosby, we got to keep the show alive. You know what I'm saying? But my college experience was really just like that. From the step shows, the Divine Nine. For those of you who don't know the Divine Nine, those are the sororities and fraternities. The black sororities and fraternities. There's 9 black sorority and fraternities, the Divine Nine. Having that experience of going to the yard, you know, seeing the probates, seeing the deltas, the AKAs, the alphas, kappas, iotas, SG roll, everybody, you know, seeing everybody cross, and like having my friends be online and we don't know that they online, and the next thing you know, we come to the probate and they pop out and we like, you know. Just that whole experience was super duper dope. I personally didn't pledge, but I love all of my Divine Nine people and my Divine Nine folks. Shout out to y'all. Yeah, it's just a great thing. The organizations, the other organizations other than Divine Nine, the other organizations, the activism. When I was in college, that's when the Troy Davis case happened, and my school was very involved with the Troy Davis case. We, you know, just being out there, having a voice. We had a Fight the Fees protest where like not everybody, but a lot of people in the school got together and protested against the financial aid office. The president of the university came out. You know, she listened to everybody's voice. Our voice was allowed to be heard. We had a strike at the school. It was just so many amazing moments in my educational career where we as black people had the opportunity to galvanize with unity, and we all stood up for something, and we was allowed to do that in this safe space of our HBCU without being seen as like a militant terroristic group, which is what would have happened if we weren't at an HBCU. You know, black folks gather and start protesting against something, all of a sudden we terrorists and we're a militant group. You know what I'm saying? But we was allowed to have that freedom of speech for real, and didn't have to worry about dying for it. And that was the beauty of going to an HBCU. We had a lot of fun. The parties, okay? The parties at the HBCU, you know, just the love and just the community and camaraderie. You know, it was y'all go to a HBCU. If you're watching this video because you're contemplating whether or not you should do it, if you're watching this video because you're not sure whether or not you should do it, I'm telling you, do it. Best decision I ever made was attending my HBCU. Shout out to Savannah State University one more time, the illustrious University by the Sea. Okay, you can get anywhere from there. I was in Cuba, y'all. I was in Cuba and I ran into some HBCU alum. We on the beach and we like, sir, Savannah State, SSU. Okay, you can get anywhere from here in Cuba. We run into each other. I ran into somebody in Mexico. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just beautiful. That's dope. You know, like that connection, the networking. You know, when I see somebody went to an HBCU, I'm like, oh my gosh, come on. You know what I'm saying? Because I know that it's just a mindset. It's just a thing. Like, we here. And it's a shared experience, you know? So go to an HBCU, y'all. Whether if it's a bigger one like Howard or Morehouse or Spelman, you know, private institutions, or if it's a public one, a little smaller one, Norfolk State, Virginia State, Savannah State, Valdosta State, what's some other little smaller one? Fort Valley, shout out to Fort Valley in Georgia, Winston-Salem, you know, wherever you choose to go, it's up to you. But I suggest and I strongly advise attend that HBCU, y'all. Much peace, much love, much light. If you have any other questions about my college experience, or just like attending an HBCU or attending college at all, please leave them in the comments below, or you could DM me on Instagram at the Queen Po. Much love, y'all. Much peace.